episode of Youngstown Penguin Football Podcast. We have been called to have this emergency podcast as your Youngstown State Penguins magical season suddenly and abruptly comes to an end on Saturday afternoon to the Yale Bulldogs unexpectedly. As always, I am your host from Tampa, Florida, South Florida. With me, as always, is the Sledge, Kyle Stroll, and Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Hess, and former director of football operations Dan Kopp. Please follow us on Instagram, Whitetown Penguin Podcast, and where podcasts can be found. But there have been a lot of feedback on what had happened. Just as I'm sure you guys may or may not know, the Yale Bulldogs did come back to beat the Youngstown State Penguins 43-42. It was at one point 35-7. At another point, I believe it was 42-14. And by a blink of the eye, Yale comes back and wins 43-42. It was on the halftime show of every prime time game for the national audience to see the Yale Bulldogs come back and beat us at the Ice Castle. Before we get in, instant reactions from my co-host, Kurt. I know you got social media, a lot of things being said, a lot of reactions, a lot of angry fans. What's being said on social media?
Yeah, before I get to that, quick side note, I had looked up yesterday. We had family in all in town, and it was 35-7, 42-14. And, we're like, oh, we're booking for Montana. Let's get ready for Montana. And next thing you know, we're finishing up dinner, and we have a chance to go down and try to score some points. So the natural part of a family conversation is this the biggest letdown of the Division I year? And I think prior to this, it was South Carolina and Texas A&M, which was a 27-point comeback win for A&M. And so, we were up 28 points, and I think this kind of eclipses that. So to put that in perspective on the national landscape, that's kind of where we were at yesterday. Social media, I'm just going to read through them because I think they're all very good and meaningful. Some are short, some are longer, and that can guide some of our discussion if you guys want. This is the first time we're really going scriptless. So I appreciate the fact that we followed the 24-hour rule, which all four of us typically do, whether we're really excited about a big win or we're heartbroken because of a big loss. But at a minimum, here's coming from social media, major changes need to be made on the defensive side of the ball. Terrible loss. Great second half by Yale, giving them credit. Went back to their run first, which surprised us. Embarrassed. Fire his ass. Not good. Disappointed. Demoralized. Focusing more on defensive improvement from 2024. Some offense to blame in the second half. Offenses to blame in the second half. Disgusted and embarrassed, miserable, disappointed. Coaching staff should be fired. Sad, and then my favorite, WTF, which is kind of, I think, where our text thread was yesterday. Like, what just happened? So that's social media immediate reaction, and really a big cause for the emergency podcast tonight.
Yeah, and all that being said, I even thought about recording this episode yesterday, but I thought, hey, let's get 24 hours so we can all sleep on it and we don't say something we don't regret. And on that note, I just want to say ahead of it before we say things that are a little too instant reaction. Uh, Doug Phillips is a great coach. We're not firing Doug Phillips. You think Doug Phillips should be fired? You're bananas. You live in banana land. If other people should be fired, I'm open to that conversation. But if Doug Phillips took over a piece of doo-doo program and he brought us to the playoffs twice now. So and he had the best recruiting class just last season. So that we could talk about it, but Sledge, over to you. What are your instant reaction thoughts to what happened yesterday?
So I'm going to add on to what you just said, but let me just say, hey, look, our guys made it to the playoffs. It's a huge accomplishment. It's something that, Kurt and I didn't get to experience, and our teammates along with us. And we had some damn good teams. And I know that if we got into the playoffs, we could do some damage, but we didn't get the opportunity. So hats off to these guys for kind of playing behind the eight ball the second half of the season and doing what they needed to do to get to the postseason. So, but man, like I got a lot of mixed feelings. I'm hurting for these guys. I'm pissed off at these guys. I'm heartbroken for these guys. There's so much that I feel, and I agree. Coach Phillips got us to the postseason twice. It's not easy. It's not easy in the Missouri Valley. And I got more to say, but I'll just leave it at that. Like, proud of these guys for getting there. Obviously it wasn't a great showing in the postseason, but to get to the postseason, there's only, so many teams that get there in the country.
DK, instant reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you pointed out about South, about Coach Phillips. All of us have been around, situations, playing, coaching, and with the program, and I don't think there was that kind of talk's crazy, like you said, bananas. I mean, he's done got to the playoffs twice in the last 3 years. My reaction is just it's almost like it's hard to believe. We were all texting and that we're up 42-14 and couldn't close the game out. And I watched the local media, the press conference showed some clips of Coach Phillips, and he apologized to the city and to the university, and his heart broke for the seniors. They were 4-8 last year, come back. A lot of those guys stayed. Max Tomczak, for example, and we go 8-4 and get in the playoffs. And Bo Brungard just said that he blamed it on the leadership of the team, and he said himself that he takes some of the blame. And Coach Phillips also said it's something they haven't figured out, how to close out a game like that. And it's just hard to comprehend, truthfully. But my feeling is when you score 42 points in the playoffs, you should win. I looked at some stats. If you go back in the playoffs, teams that score 40 or more points, it's crazy. I mean, it's staggering that you win the game. You usually win that game. And our offense scored 7 points in the second half. Our defense gave up 36, right? So everybody's to blame in the sense of offense. Could they have scored another touchdown? Yes. Should the defense give up 36 points in the second half? In my opinion, no. So that's we had a quarterback who, hard to deny, is not the best player in the FCS at the FCS level. 4,700 yards of total offense and 54 touchdowns. I mean, I want you to comprehend that for a second. 54 touchdowns and 4,700 yards of total offense. I mean, Kurt, you're a Hall of Fame quarterback. Is that not the greatest performance by an individual Youngstown State football player that ever? So I would pose that question. And it's a shame we're not playing again next week. So, it's just my gut reaction of just, you got to find a way to get some stops. I mean, right, guys? I know you could blame some things on the offense of, we could have taken, kicked a field goal. We missed 2 field goals. Missed 2 field goals. And, but you got to win those games. I mean, I'm just, my thought is we needed to make a stop in the second half and we win the football game. And that's not too much to ask. And we have good coaches, or else we wouldn't have been 8-4 in the best conference at the FCS level and be in the playoffs for second time in 3 years. But we had to close that game out. And again, I was talking to my dad today, just rehashing Bo Brungard. I'm campaigning for him, it sounds like, but realistically, I mean, come on, man. 4,700 yards of total offense. And I'm going to say it again, 54 touchdowns. Might never see that again. So that's all I got.
Well, before we dive into kind of where we go from here, let's talk about the game for a minute, guys. I'll tell you where, and it's a question for y'all too, is when do y'all hit panic mode? When did y'all realize, when did you hit that oh shit button, right? For me, I kind of recognized the second half. Their players started on Yale were kind of chirping. They seemed really cocky. And I was like, these guys are really cocky for being down 4 or 5 touchdowns. And then I instantly realized that they had our defense figured out. They made the adjustments that our defense could no longer stop them. And on the other side of the ball, I also realized, wow, they're starting to slow down our offense. Our offense isn't moving and walking down the field like it was. This could be kind of interesting. So then when they scored and went for two and it was 42-22, that's when I kind of for me, I kind of said, oh shit. And then when it became 29-42, I started to do the math in my head. I saw how much time's left on the clock, and I said, Yale's going to have enough time for at least 4 drives in this game, and they're scoring at will, and we are no longer moving the football. And that's when y'all remember I started hitting the thread, and I was half joking, half serious. I was like, we're going to lose this game. And I was like starting to, I wasn't bought in that we're going to lose, but I was like, there's a very real possibility. All of us watch a lot of Youngstown State football, that us losing this game is like a very Youngstown State thing to happen. Curdy, what'd you think?
Yeah, I'm with you, Sal. I didn't necessarily pick on them being cocky, but good coaching and good leadership from their coach in the locker room. When you're down 35-7 on the road in the playoffs, you are backs against the wall at that time saying, hey, don't worry about the score. 35-7, 42-7, whatever it is, we're going to go out there. We're going to run our stuff. We've got a good beat on what they're doing. You guys just go out there and execute. Let's do this one drive at a time, which is exactly what they did. And when it got to that 22 point or that 29 point, and we were kind of losing ourselves a little bit. It felt like Northern Iowa game from the week before, which we came out here on Wednesday, last week with Dathan, and we were talking about, hey, we finally got over the hump. We squeaked by. Thinking about it now, I'm glad we took that 24-hour rule, because that was not a, hey, we squeaked this one out on the road. That was a warning for us, which is if you don't close out in the third quarter against Northern Iowa on the road and get that figured out for the next week, it's going to happen to you again from a better team, from a more disciplined team, potentially a better coach team. And the pressure's on because you're at home. This is the playoffs. You're supposed to win. You were up 35-7. That things get really, really tight. So the minute we started thinking about, okay, whether it's from Coach Phillips on down or defensively, or from, the way Bo's saying that it was senior leadership or just leadership on the team, whoever did not learn from Northern Iowa the week before is the one to blame. I can't point fingers. I'm not in that locker room. But we had an opportunity to learn from the Northern Iowa victory where we got away with it, and we did not learn from it the next week. And so it quickly turned into, thank God we snuck out this squeaky win the week before on the road, into, hey, we didn't listen to the warning from the week before. And that was really hard to kind of process last night for us.
Yeah, well said. You're right. I think our defensive side of the ball makes adjustments well at halftime, but when they have to make adjustments on the fly, obviously it didn't happen at UNI and it didn't happen against Yale. Sledge, thoughts, and if you want to say what's going on in that YouTube chat, feel free.
I agree with Kurt. We didn't take the week before at UNI seriously, and then on Wednesday before the show, I said we should be in front, but Yale has great coaches there, and we weren't sure what we were going to get from Ivy League level talent. I said the Ivy League puts guys in the NFL just like the Missouri Valley, so there's definitely players in there, and that coach has been there for a long time. He's won a lot of Ivy League championships, and dominated Harvard, who's, when you think Ivy League, you think Harvard, especially when it comes to football. So, I really hit the oh shit button when they scored 29 and we just couldn't move the ball anymore. They go up or down there, they score 36, it's 36-42, and I think we went 3 and out maybe. And right there I was like, we can't move the ball, and we're playing not to lose the game instead of playing tenacious. I mean, it was 2 totally different teams in the first half and the second half. And this team has been fun to watch. This team has been frustrating to watch. And we talk about it that Kurt and I played in a different era of football. And, you know, a lot of these guys in the locker room can tell me to go pound salt, and that's totally fine. That's totally fair. Um, we got amazing athletes. We got awesome players across the board. But this NIL era, I feel, gives players and individuals a sense of entitlement, a sense of I've made it. And, you know, I kind of think that's a big issue across all of college football. But with YSU specifically, I have an issue with this swag. And like, I was on the sideline at North Dakota State for pre-games. I wanted to soak it all in, and just it was killing me that I wasn't out there warming up, but like, guys chirping on the 50-yard line with guys from NDSU, like, dude, that's a bad look. Like, NDSU has proven that they're a dominant force, and who are you to come into the Fargo Dome and start talking shit? And like, yeah, we played great game, but like, you still didn't get the win. And we have this issue with closing games out. And this, I know this was last season, but you lose to Duquesne, and you just have this atrocious season and these growing pains with Bo. And Bo made a hell of a leap this year. I mean, Bo was the most fun player to watch across all of college football. Like, I'm talking, like, I watch SEC games. You watch Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate up here in the North when you're watching the Buckeyes and Julian Sayin. And dude, I want to watch Bo Brungard take control of a game and just have fun. But we got guys that just act like we're going to roll the ball out there and win the game. Like, and that's an old, Coach Montgomeryism, like, you still have to play the game. And I mean, just clean it up. Like, I think that this team has issues with discipline, entitlement. Like, we're dropping balls and we're talking shit. And there's a whole have to, like, this YSU team, like, if I'm a coach and I see any guy talking shit, I'm pulling him off the field, because to me, it's like, you already think the shit's won, and it's not. And until we can learn to close out games, like, and score 70 on someone, like, that's the type of caliber team. If you can score 35 in the first half, you can score 70 in a game. And to score 7 points in the second half is embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. And that's kind of where I take it. And I don't care if these guys think, I'm old man, get off the lawn or whatever. It's just, dude, at the end of the day, you got to do something differently to get a different result. And what I mean by that is, YSU, it's not good enough to just get into the postseason. YSU is built on championships. And 2 years ago, a first round smack in Duquesne was awesome. And then going to get stomped by Villanova isn't, fun. And to get embarrassed, nationally embarrassed, like, this is all over, like, college football Instagram, is Penguins blew a 42-14 lead. Not only in the second half, 18 minutes to go. There's 3 minutes in the third quarter, like two and some change, and you blew a 42-14 lead. So something's got to change. And I don't know if it's players, if it's coaching, because we have the talent. It's a mindset thing. And like, that's why when we had Coach Strollo on there and he won the first national championship, it's like, how did you get there? Like, it's a program that has never won a national championship, so you don't have like that tradition to lean on or look back to and ask guys like, oh, how they figured it out. And we're not figuring it out. Like, we have so many examples in front of us on like our own teams from the 90s. You play against national champs every single year because you have NDSU, you have South Dakota State winning them. Illinois State's been there. We've been there in 2016 and we can't get back. So it's very frustrating. I think it's the NIL era, players having a sense of entitlement, and they're out for themselves. As soon as they have a great season, especially at our level, as soon as they have a great season, boom, they're in the transfer portal. They're looking for a next big check. And we talk about Coach Doug's like great recruiting class, and I know I got a lot to say. I always have a lot to say. We talk about Coach Doug's great recruiting class, but what's that look like in terms of how do we retain guys? Or how do we get a young team? Because that feels like that's going to be a theme in FCS and a lot of other smaller schools, is how do we get a young team? Because we're probably only going to get 2 seasons of work with like a good athlete. How do we get 2 seasons of work and get these guys deep into the playoffs?
Well, we'll get on the next topic. Where do we go from here? Who's coming back, whatnot. But Dan, just want you to get a word in. Yesterday, when was your oh shit moment? When did you think, all right, this is real, we could lose this game?
When Flash fumbled, I thought it was a little bit of, oh man, now we turn the ball over and this team's got momentum. I will say their safety, number 15, played a heck of a game. He came up and made some tackles on Bo that I don't remember anybody all year long making tackles on Bo like that. Including,
fast too. He was fast,
and
as
including
fast as Bo.
Yeah, I mean, including Missouri Valley games, guys weren't tackling Bo like that. So Flash fumbling, and then I'll be honest with you, I just kept thinking we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna close it, but Kyle pointed out a lot of really good things there that, if you're looking at if we were sitting in a staff room earlier this morning and looking at, well, we brought in Mike Yursich and had arguably one of the greatest offensive seasons since Shane Montgomery under Coach Wolford and Kurt Hess in 2013, I believe, right? 12 and 13. And then, the last 2 years, just factually, the stats on the defensive side of the ball have not been good. So, Kyle mentioned something's got to change. I don't have the answer to that, and I'm not going to pretend I do. But you talked about when we had Ron Strollo on. Remember in 1990, YSU went undefeated, 11-0, and lost in the first round of the playoffs to UCF. And then next year they were 4-3 and won 8 in a row and won the national title. So maybe this pain is a lesson that, we can come back next year and realize, as we all said, getting to the playoffs is step 1, right? Then we got to hopefully go all the way. So hopefully that's the lesson learned here. It's a different time, man. This NIL and everything. Do we have anybody in the portal yet? Sorry, I'm maybe skipping ahead. Flash?
Okay,
so
per
Flash
Dana Ballas, 21 WFMJ on X.
Okay, so I don't think that surprises any of us, really, right? So he's thrown his name in the ring, and there you go. But I think that was the moment, Sal. To answer your question, that Flash fumbling, and there was just momentum going, and a couple of times number 15 came up and tackled Bo and
beelined.
Yeah, I mean, he's, so, and then, let's give this Yale team, I think Kurt mentioned it. We were down 35-7 on the road in the playoffs. I mean, they must have said something, right? They did some things right. And I mean, there's some credit to Yale here too, but I'll stand by this. You score 42 points in the playoffs, you should win the freaking game.
And to that point, where do we go from here? The next question I have for you guys to try to sum things up. who's coming back, not by way of Doug Phillips firing them. Do they just leave on their own? Who do we want to get rid of if you were the head coach? Player wise, I think Ethan Wright's a senior. Tom Zach's a senior. You mentioned flashes in the portal. Who is coming back? Who can we maintain? Who do we not want to come back? Where do you see that we need help? Is it the secondary? Is it receivers? Where do we need guys coming in and on the staff wise? Who do you see leave? Because like you said, one of the best offensive seasons ever. Does our OC leave to bigger and better things, or you think we retain them? What do you think, Curdy? What do you think we should do this offseason?
Kind of a loaded question, Sal, and Searle brought up a lot of good points, and I think like in summing up kind of what Searle was saying, and to kind of give us a little bit of a leg to stand on, the standard is the standard at Youngstown State, right? And I think that being an FCS program in the Missouri Valley right now for us, Youngstown State, is a double-edged sword. Everything that we have good going can come back and bite us. And, say what you want about Doug Phillips, because I know that everybody gets emotionally frustrated. And Doug's the first one who would come on this podcast and say, you know what, that's my fault. I'm going to take the heat for that second half. He's not going to blame any of his coaches. And all of us playing for people at some point is going to want a head coach to take responsibility. Say what you want about Doug Phillips and the way that we lost this game. We've been in the playoffs 2 out of the last 3 years. And prior to this, we were back in the playoffs in 05, 06. We didn't get back there till 16. And then we didn't get back there again till 23. So really, we went an 18-year drought where we got in once. And now we have Doug Phillips, who's gotten us in 2 out of the 3 times, and we want to fire him. Doug will come on here and say, I did not do a good job. I have 1 year left on my contract. If I stink next year, let me go. He would say that. And so, he knows we have a standard here. We all know that we have a standard here. But the standard also goes to players right now. Flash Wilson was the most electric player outside of Bo Brungard, probably in the Missouri Valley, definitely on our team. And we recruited him. We got him. We were in the transfer portal for him. Doug brought him in. Our coaching staff brought him in. He scored a lot of touchdowns. He was super productive. But here's why it's a double-edged sword. He's ready to move on somewhere else. And I don't know what's going on with him. But here at Youngstown State, when you're a mid-major Division I football team, everything that you do is a double-edged sword. We invest a lot of money in football. We have an alumni club who's getting the tailgate going, getting the funding going, getting the golf outings going. We have an athletic director who definitely supports football. But with that comes a standard. And so, the stakes are as high as they've ever been for Youngstown State football. But we do have a head coach right now who is ready to accept responsibility for everything that's happened this year, for good and for bad. Now, generally, when things go well, he gives credit to the players, which is who you want leading your program. But you better move fast in this NIL area, which is what Searle was kind of talking about, is because people are already moving. Are you going to be able to retain players? The good ones that we have that are really productive, are we going to be able to keep them? I know Bo and his family, that's the elephant in the room right now. Bo is a Youngstown State Penguin. He bleeds, Penguin red. But, is he looking for another opportunity? I don't know. The opportunities for that type of player in this Division I day and age are going to be there. I don't know what his headspace is. I'm sure he's going to do it, with his faith and with his family for sure. We'd love to have him back, but those opportunities are going to be there for him. But again, Coach Phillips is ready to take on that challenge. He's going to be the first person, and our defensive coordinator, Hainline, he's going to be the first person to say, hey, that's completely my fault. That's not you. That's on us. I like coaches like that, and I like a coaching staff like that. And we've seen with Strollo over time, he's going to honor that contract. We're not going to buy Doug Phillips out. He's got 1 more year. Doug's probably going to tell you, he would come on this podcast in the offseason and say, it's going to be a show me. If I go 4-8 this year, I'm not living up to the standard of Youngstown State football. I expect to get out of here. He knows what the standard is around here, and it's championships. And so as much as we give credit to players and recruiting and coaches, when they don't live up to that, it stings even more. Because on one side, you can say, we played North Dakota State in Fargo on the road to a 1-possession game because of everything that we've done, and we've given credit to the program and everybody. But then when we lose that game and then lose in the first round, Now all of that wants to turn around and you say, but we can do that, yet we didn't. Who are we going to point the finger at? Doug's the first person to go look in the mirror and say, that's on me. I know it is. I like that in him personally. Doesn't mean that he's completely our future. But it's hard for me to say that we're not going to be able to honor that contract. So I think the next two months are really important for Coach Phillips and what culture he still has in the locker room and which players we can keep, because things can unravel at the mid-major level in Division I really fast with your good players. And if you're not replacing them with good high school players, if you're not replacing them with good transfer players, and he's talked since day one about getting the right type of guy in there, the right type of character guy, which 80 to 90% of our guys probably are. A loss like this means we probably have about 5 to 10% of those guys who are not high character guys. Because, if you got 100% bought in the locker room, a loss like yesterday doesn't happen.
Well said, Curdy. And for the Sledge, I don't imagine you have a crystal ball and you could tell me who is and isn't coming back. But who do you kind of want to see come back, and who do you kind of want not to come back? What's the quick reaction? What do you foresee of this offseason for next season?
So quick reaction. Obviously, we all want Bo back, and I think we have an outside shot because his dad played here. His dad won a national championship here. If Bo has another repeat season, they could retire at 12. So Bo and Kurt's jersey's retired. I'm not even kidding. And
thanks, Bo.
Defensively, I really want Mike Wells back. He's listed as a junior. I think he's as fun to watch on defense as Bo is on offense. And just I've sat and I've talked to Coach Handline, X's and O's with him. Everything's sound. Like it's just I think there's guys that I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's secondary. That's traditionally the hardest position to play, on a football field. The game is set up for offense to be successful. I get it, but it's not an excuse because there's lockdown corners all across the country. And, I think that one of our needs this year is going to be D tackle. I mean, a lot of our D tackles are seniors. Do we recruit really good freshmen that are going to be coming up and playing nice ball next year, because it's next man up mentality. Like, do we go get a Division II guy in the portal to just kind of be a filling guy with these younger D tackles? Ebony Curry Jr., defensive end. He's a sophomore. Let me just check real quick. He's a sophomore, so I would love to see him back. He's listed at 6'5", 250. He had a pretty good season. Like, I can't imagine that someone's not in his ear saying, hey, why don't you come to, XYZ school or whatever. Ajaga. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that name. Ajaga. He's a junior, D-line, 6'4", 240. Like, would love to see him back because we're gonna need to retain like guys. And so I think we're gonna need help at D tackle. And man, like, I think one thing that makes a defense go is, like, sure, you can have an end or whatever, but like, dude, we need a nasty Tim Johnson middle linebacker, like a guy that can play sideline to sideline, not middle of the field to sideline, because that's typically a pretty good defensive end, like, midfield to sideline, and then you have the D tackles in the other end covering the rest of the half of the field. But man, if we have a guy in the middle linebacker position that can just scream to any part of the field, play in coverage, like, that's going to make our defense pop. And like I said, I think Coach Handline has a pretty solid defense. It's just, do we have the guys in the right spot? Because I look at Coach Handline and what he did with Mike Wells this year. Electric. I mean, but at the end of the day, I don't want to be talking about a first or a second round exit next year. And that, to me, solely hinges on if Bo decides to stay. Because if Bo doesn't decide to say, we're looking at a full rebuild, because I just don't think that we can plug somebody in and have the same success that we had because of how dominant and electric Bo was. The other thing to this is, I think that we need to retain Coach Yursich somehow. And aside from all the players, I loved watching this offense, and I think that he would do well with any quarterback that he had. But when you pair him with Bo, and you have Jaden Gilbert and some of the other running backs we had, Ethan Wright's gone; he's a senior. Jaden Gilbert's a sophomore. Like, super fun to watch. Like, I'm just defensively, we have a lot to replace and retain, unfortunately.
Cyril, you brought up something I thought of too. Sorry to cut you off, Sal.
Go ahead.
I don't see a world. Tell me if I'm wrong. I don't see a world where we have Coach Yursich unless we have Bo Brungard. Because Yursich is going to have just as many opportunities as Bo is to go elsewhere. Is Coach Yursich going to take on a brand new quarterback next year when he has this body of work? Tell me if I'm wrong from a coaching staff perspective, Sal and Dan.
No.
Because you've got a great resume right now if you're
Yeah,
Yursich.
and
if Bo decides to move on and Yursich is here in the spring and he's got a few projects, he might be like, you know what? Somebody over here is looking for somebody. I might be out.
Especially if Bo wins the Walter Payton. That goes on Coach Yursich's resume too. And
Right.
I've joked about it, like, since Franklin got hired at VT, like, that's not out of the realm of possibility for Coach Yursich to land. I mean, it's been an electric offense. He has a relationship and has coached for Franklin at Penn State. Like, dude, I think that that's a real probable landing spot for him.
Yeah. One thing on that exact comment was, if you guys remember last season, and Kurt, you as my witness, we were getting social media messages and whatnot about benching Bo Brungard because of how bad he was last year. And just one offensive coordinator comes in, and now he's the best quarterback in the country. Not to take anything away from Bo, obviously, because he's been fantastic, but it just shows you what the offensive coordinator, the difference he made. That's who we need to keep. If Bo leaves, not that we will reload, but I'm just saying he took an average Bo Brungard and made him the greatest quarterback in the country. He could possibly do the same thing if he comes back. I think the offensive coordinator is key here. And I think if he comes back, Bo is going to be, I don't want to say stupid, but he would be dumb to leave this offensive coordinator because this offensive coordinator made you the greatest quarterback in the country. So he's probably going to stick with this offensive coordinator wherever he goes. That's who we need to stick with us. Not so much Bo. And what I guess I'm getting at is if we had a spare $100,000, I would give it to this offensive coordinator, not give it to Bo, because this offensive coordinator basically invented Bo. And if y'all think I'm nuts by saying that, I'm free for you guys to say so.
No, I don't think an extra $100,000 is the answer, because I think if he's going to get pulled somewhere, there's going to be 7 figures in front of it. And the one thing, and this goes to Bo's, like Bo's success and Coach Yursich, is Coach Yursich put Bo in a position to be successful and be comfortable in the offense. It's like Bo has ran this offense his entire college career. And that's not easy. That's just not easy. I learned 3 defenses in my time at YSU. It's hard. It's not necessarily hard to learn it, but it's hard to just kind of gel as a team.
Yeah.
And one Bo picked it up. He commanded it, looked very comfortable back there, and the rest of the guys like followed him. So, like, that's the Bo's credit, and it's the Coach Yursich's credit. It's gonna be Christmas morning if we retain both of those guys.
And before I bring Dan back into this, one more thing I wanted to say, Sledge, that you said earlier on the defense and on hand line and the X's and O's. A lot of coaches, given the film, you can draw up a great game plan, right? It's the good coaches or the great coaches that once you get out there on game day and the other team shows you something completely different or they adjust to what you show them, being able to adjust on the fly is extremely difficult to do. And it's probably why I'm not coaching football anymore, but it's very hard to do. And that's something that I think we're missing on the defensive side of the ball all season. DK, what do you think?
Well, I mean, if let's say if we're starting on offense, obviously we got to do what we can to keep Bo Brungard. Deshmail Lee, our left tackle. I mean, the people have talked about he could be a guy that's playing on Sundays. We're pretty loaded at running back. I mean, losing Ethan hurts, but I think Antoine Gardner is a guy, and I'm missing the other guy, number 25. Gosh, his last name, but. So I think we're okay running back wise. Is Luke Hensley back? I don't.
No, he's a senior. He was a nice player.
So, yeah, very nice. So we lose him. We lose Max, but there were some other guys in there working in, and Coach Yursich. I think it's hand in hand. I mean, I would look at our Hall of Fame quarterback who's on this podcast. Kurt Hess had certain abilities that you couldn't coach. Now pair that with Shane Montgomery, and he had a Hall of Fame career. Bo Brungard is a unique talent. I mean, people were saying, I don't know if he's the guy, and he's not tall enough, and he had the greatest season in the history of Youngstown State football. Now, that did Coach Yursich came in and obviously helped him get to that point. But I think Bo Brungard's good. No matter, I would say this. I'd be shocked if we lose Bo. I would. Who's going to come get him that maybe fits what Bo wants? I think it's evident Bo's faith is the number one thing in his life. I'm not saying I know the kid, but we hear him, we watch him. I would think it would have to be a pretty strong head coach with all the right things and put him in a position that. But I would be surprised. This kid's a local farm kid. His family lives on his family farm or might work on there for all I know. I would be a little surprised if we lose Bo. I would think we better do some things to help him, right? I mean, if we're sitting in a coaching staff, and let me ask you guys this: do you think Bo's hung up on money?
No, I
don't
think
so
either.
Seem like a money kid to me.
Yeah, he doesn't. So, but he does. The commercials and things you see here, and they're well done. And but I think Bo wants to, like he says, wants to win a championship right here. Could be wrong. Obviously, we all agree you got to find a way to keep Coach Yursich. What is that? I mean, he's probably getting some offers. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I think we all come to find out his wife is from this area. So maybe that helps us for Youngstown State. So that'll be interesting. And, on the defensive side of the ball, Kyle knows best on here. And Sal, you were on that defensive side while you were coaching here. Man, some of those moments felt like 2010, 2011. Didn't it, guys? A couple of late games, we couldn't finish it off. So, to that end, so I don't know where to go from here. I'm not the kind of guy that likes to talk about firing coaches, but you got to have some answers, right? Got to have some answers for, losing the way we did and whatever that might be. But I really liked what Kurt said about Doug Phillips. Sal, you texted Doug Tuesday night last week or whatever and asked, can we have Dathan Hickey on the show? And he was on the show. I mean, Doug Phillips is a stand-up guy. He has taken us to the playoffs twice. The standard is hard here. Jim Tressel built something here at Youngstown State that's almost – we watched, all four of us watched two guys, John Haycock and Eric Wolford, do great things at Youngstown State. And, and they're still doing great things as coaches, but it is hard to be the head coach at Youngstown State, is it not? I mean, right? This place, this program will eat you up. And, but that's the standard we all have for it. And Doug Phillips said it on TV last night. He apologized to the community and the university, the alumni. he's a hell of a guy. We've always had good head coaches here, right? I mean, look at the guys we've had on our show. We got to get Wolf on here, but Jim Tressel, John Haycock, Eric Wolford, Bo Pelini, Doug Phillips. That's the last 5 coaches in the modern era at Youngstown State. Those are pretty good names. And so it's a great place. It's a great place to coach. I think we're going to be back in the playoffs next year. But we got to go find a couple of guys. I think Kyle mentioned, right? We can never have enough D linemen. And I think, Kyle, you said we need a Mike linebacker like Tim Johnson, right? Man, if we can find a guy like that,
yeah,
I hope,
game set match. I mean,
yep.
We're
not far away. We're not far away.
I mean,
so
we've had good defensive lines. Like listen, I was average. I worked my ass off. I was an average player, but like, you won't outwork me. You won't know the defense better than me. Like, when we've had better talent on the defensive line consistently year in, year out, we're missing like 2 guys. And I think it's a nasty middle linebacker. I just think that's what we need. And I don't know how you build them, because that's a mindset that, like, if anyone knows Tim Johnson, has talked to Tim Johnson, guy's not right in the head. Okay. And I say that with love, Tim, if you're listening. All right. Don't, body slam me or whatever. But, that guy's built and wired differently. And there's a reason why it took him to the NFL. And I'm not saying we need an NFL caliber middle linebacker. It'd be damn nice to have one. But, we can't have guys, being these emotional divas at that position. Like, I want a guy that it just wants to work, doesn't care about him, just wants to go do his job and light somebody up.
No doubt. Real quick before we try to wrap things up, I just want everyone to say at least one positive thing. This has been very emotionally draining 24 hours. One positive thing, and then I want Cyril to kind of read off the YouTube chat, because that will probably be depressing as well. And then we'll say just one quick take to end the show. But just one positive thing one positive thing I just want to kind of say is, how about my corner, number 7, Wimpy? I feel like he was picked on the entire season and exposed and a liability. Yesterday against Yale, they tried to go after him, and he stepped up to the occasion, and he played a great game. And I think that is why we shut them down in the first half. I think they went after Wimpy, and he had an interception, some key pass breakups. And then I think in the second half, they said, all right, let's go back to our identity. Speaking of Yale, and they said, let's just run the football and quit trying to pick on this guy. So my hat's off as a positive note to Wimpy, and that secondary there in the first half really did come to play. Any positive thoughts, Curdy?
Yeah, biggest positive, just reflecting on the entire roster. You're not able to do what you can, what we did really in the run game or in the pass game without an offensive line that's working together. They weren't always perfect throughout the year, but when we came out ready to play every game to establish the run, and I think we almost always did. And then when we needed to pass, or we had opportunities for big plays in the pass game, whether it be play action or we needed to drop back, Bo had time. He had lanes to run. And I think it's hard as an offensive line to play with a quarterback as athletic as Bo, because you're going to force yourself to grab your player, because you never really know where Bo's going to be. So I do think overall throughout the season, I think we did a good job of staying away from sacks, establishing the run game. You can never give those guys enough credit. And I know that those guys really work hard throughout the week, getting their bodies right, because they're leaning on guys just as big as they are. And, talk about the talent that Phillips can get. And maybe we've gotten it the last 5 or 6 years, but that offensive line that we have is starting to feel a little bit more like Dakota's size. And that's something that we haven't always have. But when we go onto the sideline, and I don't go on the sideline every year, but every time I go there, I'm like, this dude's legit 6'6", 320. they got the knee braces on, and those guys work hard. So shout out to that offensive line. You guys, you really paved the way. You laid the foundation for Bo to have an incredible year, to get Max and Tom Zach the ball and those guys. And, Jaden Gilbert really came on late in the year, and that's not possible without those guys up front. So great job up front, boys.
Something positive, Sludge.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna just jump on Kurt's thing and emphasize, like, yeah, we were roughly the same size as North Dakota State when we were there on the field. Looked pretty matched. Like, that's awesome to see. We got to keep, doing that. Like I said, a positive. I'm just going to lean on the fact that these guys got to the postseason. They did play behind the 8 ball. They got a couple losses early. They lost a 1-score game to South Dakota State, lost a 1-score game to North Dakota State. Like, I commend them for going out and, like, playing do or die football, when it mattered. Southern Illinois, Illinois State, UNI, and handling their business. I think that we should have had a better season. But on a positive note, like, they went to the postseason. They had an opportunity. They gave themselves an opportunity, and sometimes that's all you can ask for.
No doubt. DK, positive.
Yeah, I think, we were sitting here last year at this time. Well, we weren't playing week 13 and 4-8 season. And, I didn't pull up that episode to see what we said, but, here we are a year later, and, we were never going to be happy how the season ended unless it ended winning in Nashville. Right. So, but it was a heck of a year, 8-4, getting the playoffs. We have the best player in the country. And we very well could have been a 9-2 football team or so. So a lot of positives to take. I think you guys all touched on some good things. Sal, I mean, Justin Wimpy, you're right, man. What a credit to his character and his ability to just keep fighting. And so I take a lot of positives from this year.
Cheryl, before we give our last thoughts, the YouTube chat, is there anything worth? I know there's a lot being said, but is there anything worth pointing out?
Yeah, Mets is got a lot of, no offense to everyone's opinion or whatever. It's not as easy as everyone needs to be fired, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, we get it. Everyone's mad. But Mets, says, September 25th, 2021, YSU blows a 35-7 lead at Western Illinois, loses 38-35. November 9th, 2024, YSU blows a 28-6 lead to Southern Illinois, loses 37-33. November 22nd, 2025, YSU nearly blows the lead 28-3 to Northern Iowa, hangs on to win 38-32. 11/29, a week later, we blow a 42-14 lead again with 18 minutes to go in the game. And he said, for that to happen within a half a decade is pretty concerning. And I tend to agree with him. I don't know what the answer is there. Obviously, it's two different defensive coordinators. Coach Phillips made a change at DC. And we're talking, the chat's talking about Bo and his opportunities, and the one that I floated out there is West Virginia. Like, it's semi close to home, and if they give him an offer that's upper six figures, like, it's kind of hard to not set yourself up for a good future with that. So we'll see. We'll jump on and we'll talk once transfer portal ends and closes. We can hash all that out instead of all these conspiracy theories.
And then one last thing is, Quigley did mention on CBS, they did have our highlights during that Oregon game. I had friends all over that only know of Youngstown State because of me down here in Tampa, and they all were texting me about the game. So that was a negative note. But one last thing for everyone, just real quick, give your 10, 15 seconds thoughts. Mine real quick. I think we're going to run it back. I think everyone's coming back. My big thing, just like the Sledge said, something's missing on the defense. I don't know if it's a Mike backer, a coach, a defensive lineman. something needs to be fixed on the defense in the offseason that is different from this season. We fixed that. The offense, I think, just runs it back. And I think we're in the same situation next year, but we close in the first and second round. We make a better run. Kurt, real quick.
Yeah, I don't know much about next year, but I keep coming in my head. The standard is the standard, and we are blessed and privileged at Youngstown State to have a standard. And you got to live with it when it's bad, and live with it when it's good, right? Because there's a lot of positives that come with having a program where there are expectations. This is one of those moments where those expectations were not met. You know, we played that way while we were there. We did not meet those expectations, and this is just kind of the double-edged sword of going to a place like Youngstown State, where championships are what's expected. So it's tough to live with it right now.
Dan, last thoughts.
Yeah, I'm Kurt nailed it. I mean, and Sal, I'm with you. I think you learn more from your losses. This was heartbreaking, but I think Doug is going to find a way to fix closing out games like that. And we hold on to number 12. We're going to be just fine. Best player in the country. So we'll find a way to hold on to him and fix where we need to stop people in late in games. I like where we're going to be going into next year.
Sledgehammer, last thoughts?
Yeah, man, I just love this team. And like I said, my heart breaks for these boys. They were a lot of fun to watch. You know, I look forward to next season. I've had a lot of fun calling games and talking about them. And, you know, it's a privilege to have that standard, like Kurt said, and I wouldn't have traded it, you know, for anything. Obviously, I didn't play in the era that these kids are playing in, but you know, it's something special when you're standing on the 50-yard line after a hard day of conditioning. You see the stadium, and then you get to game day, and you see the 4 national championship banners, and you want nothing more than to add another. And you know, each season brings that opportunity. I love these guys. I love this team, and I'm excited for next season.
No doubt. And we are going to break down this season as a whole. We'll break down this season as a whole in the off season, and we are going to obviously get you ready for 2026. But quick shout out real quick to the YouTube live chat and those who followed us all season, those who listened all season. We definitely appreciate you. We love that y'all share the same passion for Youngstown State Penguin football. We'll be back in 2026. Definitely follow us on Instagram, Whitetown Penguin Podcast. That's how you can find out our off-season schedule, as it's kind of sporadic during the off-season until we really get things going at the end of July, August, as camp kind of gears up. But again, thank you guys very much. And obviously, we apologize for what happened with the Yale game, as it was unfortunate as the Youngstown State Penguins fall to Yale 43-42. And we will be back. Follow us on Instagram. No one will be back. But as always, I'm Sal Guerrero. That's Dan Cup. That's the Sledge Calcer. That's Kurt Hess. Thank you. And as always, go Penguins.